Cool effects, bro.
Hey, thanks, man. I've been practicing in my free time.
Cool. You have free time.
Welcome, everyone, to another Energetic Arts live stream. Tonight we have Andy Dennis back, ordained monk and entrepreneurial extraordinaire. And tonight we're back for part 2 of Perceptions and Potentials. Last week, Andy did a brilliant job of laying out a foundation of the concept of layers of
spiral dynamics.
Spiral dynamics. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Levels.
Thanks for rescuing me with that one.
Yep.
Yeah, and the different layers and how we can see them and what they can do. And today maybe we'll riff a little bit on how we can play around with that. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Andy, and you can take the lead on this and we can go wherever you like.
Geez. Well, as per usual, I haven't done my homework.
That's all right. We're like, I think we're all a bit like that here. We just kind of get in here and wing it, and hopefully everything we've gleaned along the way will come out at the right time in the right way.
It will all just work out in the end.
That's right.
And if it hasn't worked out yet, it isn't the end.
It's not the end. Yeah.
So a couple of important pieces of business to take care of. Firstly, one, it is Feather's 3rd birthday today.
Happy birthday, Feather.
That's my dog. So if you see her, give her a bark. And then also, if anyone out there, I know that there's some Americans in this group. So one of the comedic geniuses of our generation, unfortunately, has gone to the other side, Norm Macdonald. So just a big RIP to Norm Macdonald if you're familiar with his work. God, an inspiration. So if you don't know Norm Macdonald, go and Google him. Have a laugh. He was a classic from Saturday Night Live. So sad to see that today in my news feed. So other than that, look, as I said, haven't really fully prepared anything. So as usual, it'll probably just be us like riffing a bit. One of the things that I thought would be interesting to touch on, and especially because, as we sort of like talked last week about those sort of like levels of development that we go through, not only as a collective, but as an individual. As I mentioned, like it kind of, for a long time, because I've studied this stuff and sort of like been familiar with it for years, and then hadn't really been like thinking of it specifically. Of course, because we talked so much about it last week, this whole week when I was seeing things in the news or in situations, in relationship with people in my work or, in different scenarios, I could, because it was so fresh in my mind, like re kind of going through them, I could really see like this stuff coming up live in person. And the fascinating thing is that I think stuff that I may have been a little bit triggered by even the week before because of just, not being conscious of it, I was able to kind of just go, and kind of just have a little laugh or just acknowledge it and kind of go, yep, this is what's happening. We're all just getting through the spiral. So, and there was a couple of bits, that I thought were very interesting and topical. And this is two things that are kind of, I think this is the stuff that happens sort of behind the scenes or that happens in the world that we don't necessarily always, we're not aware of it until it happens and until it's affected us. And it's usually, so it's a couple of news stories. So one that I thought was really fascinating, and it ties back to our sort of conversation that we had a few weeks back about cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so when we talk about, for example, potentials, and because one of the few things we did say is that we would talk about what, now that we've sort of laid out these different kind of levels that we have the possibility to inhabit in our being and in the collective, what we can sort of go towards now.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and just as I said, to tie in like our conversation about currency, finance, and how that kind of fits in, and then how, as we go through these transformative periods, the different levels rub up against each other, cause friction, and that causes ripples throughout the universe, right? Or throughout our experience. So a very fascinating thing overnight, and during the day yesterday in America, there's a gentleman called Gary Gensler, who's the head of the SEC, that he met with. He basically had a presentation in front of the U.S. Senate regarding cryptocurrency. Okay, so by the way, fascinating that that's happening, and that there's a conversation of that magnitude about this transformative technology that a couple of years ago you could never have imagined that conversation. Oh, have we lost you? Great.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. We've had some technical difficulties dropping in and out. Here we go. I'm getting Andy back now.
We got to work on our tech stuff.
Man, one thing I'm looking forward to in the future is Starlink constant internet. That's one thing I'm looking forward to.
Jeez,
This
like
is
Byron
like,
Bay, hey? It's like, are you there?
obviously Optus just yanks the chain at 7:40 p.m. and everyone gets kicked off, and then you got to reboot and get back on
Gnarly.
again.
Got to go with Telstra.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
you know what? You don't want to hear my opinion on Telstra right now, but anyway,
I know.
Let's get back to the topic at hand.
Yeah. So anyhow, before we lose again, so very interesting. So Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, as a crypto person, this is a guy who taught blockchain at MIT. We thought, okay, this guy is going to be he's going to be our friend in, when it comes to when it comes to regulating cryptocurrencies and everything that goes along with it. Now, so to tie it into our conversation, so where we're at right now is let's talk about what happens with our money in the bank. Okay, when we're at the level of development, which is sort of this blue orange sort of area that we kind of discussed before, right? Which is this like capitalist world. The bottom dollar is the thing that's in charge, and we're basically, our lives are run a lot by corporations and big banks, and a lot of the decisions they make have a massive effect on us. Like, for example, we pay a bank to hold on to our money, right? Is the narrative that we are thinking. We go, oh, well, we're going to put our money in the bank, and sure, we're going to pay a little fee because they're going to hold on to it, right? This is sort of old world now, because what most people don't realize is that if you do have any sort of capital and you have it in the bank, well, besides the fact that the money's deflating and it's losing value sitting there, the bank actually is taking your money out and they're loaning it to other people and charging them 25% interest per year on that, so that you can pay a fee for them to do it. Which is how our financial self fits at that level of development. Now take what's happening in the cryptocurrency world, a decentralized finance, where I can become my own bank. I can hold my cryptocurrency in a wallet and I can lend that out and earn 15% interest on my own money, and I can become my own bank. So right now, so in the last 24 hours, we've had Gary Gensler in front of Congress, basically in front of the Senate, arguing that he's coming after cryptocurrency exchanges, and he's coming after the ability for essentially people to be able to do that, because the SEC is getting pressure from banks to do that. So what we've had is that we've because the technology has evolved faster than this old broken system, and it's allowed people to do that. Now we have this rubbing up against this new level of existence that we can all be in, where we can have financial freedom, where we can be our own bank, where I can say, well, if I have capital, I can go and I can write a contract for 30 or 60, 90 days, and I can, instead of paying the bank to loan my money out so they can make money off it, I can actually earn interest on my own little loan that I can do for someone across the world through a couple of clicks of a button, because technology has allowed us to do that by taking us into this kind of in my opinion, second tier technology and second tier currency. And we're gone again.
Apologies once again, everyone. Let's try this. Take 3. Just waiting for a stable connection here. Take 3.
Take 3. Are you plugged into your internet, or are you going off of Wi-Fi?
I'm going. I'm actually going off a hotspot here because it's a long story, but yeah. There's a lot of energy coming through a little tiny connection at the moment.
Okay, I'll try and keep my energy contained so I don't break this. I can.
we have to tread lightly at the moment. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, through a hotspot.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it another time.
Okay, no worries. So anyhow, just to cap the Gary Gensler SEC, SEC coming after crypto. Basically, this is this is true real world playing out of the stages of development of the technology and the currency being ahead of the systems that are trying to control it, right?
Yeah.
So what?
There's
So
a
what
lot
we
of
have,
that. There's a lot of that going on in a lot of areas at the moment.
yeah, exactly. It is, and so it's just interesting when you see it. So I can kind of so I go, well, part of me as someone that's spends a lot of my a lot of my sort of financial situation is in that world. So when I look at it, I could be angry about it. And a lot of people who I know are very angry. They're, well, this is fucking crazy. They can't do that, and da 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 da. And you can bark all you want about it, but this is evolution. This is
Yeah.
how we
This is
evolve,
how it works. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
a snake, when it sheds its skin, has to rub up against a rock to help that skin come off,
Come
right?
off.
So this friction that happens is all part of the unfolding.
The process.
And
Yeah.
we can be angry about it, or we can take it personally, or we can go, well, this is evolution. This is growing pains, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So I did think, I said, guys, like, to a couple of guys in a group that I'm in, I'm going, the fact that we're in the Senate having this conversation right now, and they're not laughing him out of there, and the back and forth conversation was, you know, he's coming and going, we're going to regulate and we're going to do this and we're going after them, and they're going, whoa, 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 like, you got to just slow your roll here. Like, these are companies that are trying to innovate and that employ people, and you know, so there's actually a really fascinating dance that's happening. And my last bit of, like, sort of financial sort of news is, and something that is probably going to affect anyone that's watching this, and it might be that they don't realize it until it happens, but I'm not sure if
Hang
you've
on,
heard
Andy.
of,
Hang on, Andy. I'm just going to give you. So you said you got news, right? Let's see. Oh no, I haven't got it queued. Sorry, my fault. Next time, I'll have it ready next time.
Okay, yeah. Breaking, extra.
Breaking news.
So I don't know if you have heard of a company before called not Evergreen. Fuck, what are they called? Evergrande. Have you heard of them?
No.
Okay.
Evergrande.
If you haven't heard of Evergrande yet, you probably will shortly. They're basically the world's largest real estate investing company based in China. Okay, and they are currently in a downward spiral. Okay, and they're probably going to default on $100 billion of loans.
Wow.
Yeah.
100 billion. 100 billion.
Okay, so they have 300 billion owing out there to, you know, to 300 billion, like, US dollars, and they've only got $200 billion worth of assets. Okay, so if anybody remembers the Lehman Brothers and 2008 and the global financial crisis, this smells and feels and looks a lot like it. Okay, so if we end up in this position where essentially, like, they default on $300 billion worth of debts, you know, and this is held in China by, like, central banks and investors, and, you know, these kind of like ghost cities that they've built come home to roost, and you basically have a contagion that could easily pop the, you know, the global debt bubble. And traditional sort of stock markets, etc., are basically bracing for what could be a very, you know, we talk about, like, throwing a pebble into the water and having a ripple. This will essentially be the equivalent of, like, you know, like a meteor, like, hitting the earth. So again, this is one
A
of
ripple
these
effect.
yeah, and so this is one of these, you know, it's an old, outdated
The meteor that
style.
killed the dinosaurs.
Well, hey, like, that's kind of what happened in
Shit.
2008, right? With the GFC, and the same sort of a scenario, but with American companies, this time Chinese, right? And what a lot of people are fearing is that, like what we all want is the Chinese government to bail this company out,
Mm,
so that
mm,
so that we are all not completely affected, because this is something that's not localized. We now know we live in a global economy, and that, when one of the biggest companies in a country that is, one of the biggest lenders in the world has an
mm,
issue like this. And this is where you go, okay, so the president of China, okay, well, what's his level of development at? How does he approach this scenario? Because we know that, it's going to take government intervention to clean up
mhm,
this mess. So we go, depending on the stage that they're at as a group, the government, which we know that there's questions around always what the intentions are with the politicians there. So yeah, this is just one of those things to put on your radar and watch and see,
mm,
like, okay, how does that then play out in our world, and how do we we know the system's broken. We actually knew it was broken when it happened the first time in 2008, and the government bailed them out. Like, we actually want we want the Chinese government to do the same thing now, bail them out. But you go,
mm,
at some point, it does have to break down,
mm.
so that
Yeah,
it,
you
so
can't
that
just keep bailing a
so
sinking
so
ship.
yeah. So you kind of go like, how does this all play out? And not that we're gonna get the answer, because this is stuff that's like, way beyond our scope, right?
Mm,
But you go, these systems that are so ingrained, and you just have to go, if you take some time on your own to Google that later and watch all of the investors and the people turning up to the offices of this place, like protesting and freaking out, going like, what's
mm,
going on here? Like, it's yeah. And it's one of these things that we think, oh, it might not affect us, but watch closely this one, because it's going to, we all know that, how much that the 2008, bubble popping in the US affected everybody globally and economies everywhere. So, these are the problems that, as we evolve to these greater stages of globalization, and as we become like, you know as our as the team, all of us, everyone, take on more and have more ability to grow, and more growth leads to the possibility for more things to go wrong at the same time,
mm, mm.
and that's individually and collectively. So, hey to Shaf, good morning. Hope you're
Oh,
well.
hey,
Hope your plan for your business is going well.
yeah, I'm curious to see where that's at too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so just to, what I thought might be cool, because I missed it earlier, is if you give a little recap of your discussion that you had earlier today about shadow work, because,
Mhm,
and then maybe I'll frame it a little bit, and then you can kind of riff on how that might relate to
mhm,
your discussion today. So when we talk about these levels of development that we go through as ourselves and as a collective, what happens is the stuff we're not aware of, and the stuff that's the sort of program, like we're a computer and we have like some virus running in the background, is a bit like when we talk about shadow work, it's this unconscious stuff that's going on within our system, right? So it's like a virus that's happening in the computer that we don't know about, that ends up doing something that we don't control. So, for example, like when you start to see that your Facebook has texted out a whole bunch of people, or it's your Facebook has messaged out like 100 everybody in your list saying like, go check out this great deal on shoes at da 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 da,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, or like, hey, you better go check out this video that you're in. You know what I mean? That your Facebook has sent out a message that appears like it's come from you, but it hasn't. So it's like this unconscious program that's running in the background, a bit like our shadow. What
Exactly.
it does, it's this program that's running in the background that we don't know about, that's spitting stuff out through our messenger, right? That we look at later and go, wait a second, I didn't send that. That's not me. That's not me. That wasn't me. But the person on the receiving end is like, wait a second, that was you.
Hey, it came from you.
It was your message. So you go, oh, well, that was actually this unconscious program that's running in the background that I wasn't aware of, right? So this is so doing our shadow work is like having a a virus program running on our computer that stops that stuff from happening. Okay, so what we have to do, or we don't have to because we're adults and we can do whatever we can do, or not do whatever we want. But if we choose to, what we could do is run like programs to clean some of that stuff up, so that how we relate in the world, like the same way because everybody's annoyed when they get those texts and the emails from the person who got hacked, who's got a virus. They're like, oh fuck, really? How did you go click on that thing and now it's sent out to everybody in your feed? Like, you should know better, right? Because the people on the outside can always see how someone's shadow is unfolding in the real world, when the person's own stuff, it's happening unconsciously, right? So the reason we call it shadow is because you want to put light on that stuff that's going on and be able to bring it out into the open, right? And so one of our challenges as we go through these like stages of development is to make sure that we've done the work at those lower stages and that we've shed light on that stuff. Because as we evolve, the way that virus presents in these later stages is worse and worse, right? The ramifications of that of the work that we didn't clean up gets worse and worse, and instead of just a pebble in the water, it's that meteor, right? So not only in ourselves, but as our collective. So the same way that right now we didn't learn in 2008 during the global financial crisis, or we weren't willing to do the work, or we weren't willing to go through the pain and the heartache and the awfulness to change the system. We just fixed it. We put a Band-Aid on it. And now you go, here we are now 12 years later, and we're about to face this same thing in the same system, right? So important that becomes a part of our growth path, is our shadow work and having a strategy there. Because otherwise, you're like that person that's gone and clicked on every one of those, and you've opened every text message. Are you getting the text messages now that maybe a package is turned up for you, or that you have a voicemail? Are you getting those?
10 times a day.
10 times a day.
10
right?
times
So
a day. Yeah.
So if we're not conscious, we're the people who go through and we open every one of those.
Oh, what's that? I don't remember ordering a package. No, because you didn't. Or if you did, it's not from your delivery system. It's from somebody else. Yeah.
So I would love to hear what you guys discussed today, and if you guys talked about any sort of like practices or.
Yeah, well, like what you did last week, we sort of just laid out the map and sort of talked about some common things that happen through shadow work, and gave people a heads up basically, because it's not one of those comfortable. People aren't lining up to do shadow work. It's not like the Kentucky tour of spirituality. It's more like the pilgrimage to Everest, and not everyone's up.
I think even pilgrimage to Everest is like, that sounds fun. I would say it's more like the overnight bus to somewhere in India, or like the 48-hour layover, like after like a 15-hour flight, and then that's what it is. Pilgrimage
going
up
to
Everest sounds lovely.
For some people it could be like going back to Chernobyl and cleaning up the soil there. It can be really, it's not a popular, fashionable thing. And I think that's one of the good indicators of people who are actually on the path and who aren't. And people who are just regurgitating things they've read in books or learned in online courses or workshops is that, when you get into it and you start to do the meditations and you start to, introduce certain practices to yourself, then inevitably your energy is going to start to raise in frequency. Your energy is going to start to get stronger, and that's going to stir up everything that's under the surface running in the background that you're perhaps not even aware of that's there. Or maybe you did get a good look, maybe you got a look at it in the past, and now it's time to actually work on it. And maybe before you weren't ready to, or you didn't want to, but there comes a tipping point where it's like either grow and go through it and deal with it and come out stronger, wiser with new abilities, or to just sort of sit back and stay, take the blue pill, basically go back into the matrix, and now you don't have the right to complain anymore because you're not unaware. You're aware of what's going on. So we covered a lot of ground. We touched on a few techniques. It's the live streams there. It's on YouTube as well now, and Pauline is doing a great job behind the scenes, putting together some little clips so we can get some moments of impact. So you don't have to sit through the whole thing to see if it's of value to you. That's the other thing about
we know
shadow work.
We know it is of value. It's then it just, if someone wants to do it,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. A lot of people who are avoiding shadow work will judge the value of it before they actually do it. And often, if they do that, they'll look for the exit. So these are, for people who are serious about it, I think shadow work's essential for your growth, your evolution, your development. But having said that, and in context of what we're talking about tonight, and like what you were saying before with Evergrande, some of these programs are so deeply ingrained and run on the backbone of the operating system of your life, your family, your community, your country, the planet, that when you finally stop looking the other way and actually look at it, you go, holy shit, this is something that we have to deal with. This is something we can't just put a Band-Aid over. We can't just patch it up. We have to pull the ship out of the water. We have to fix the holes, or maybe we have to look at redesigning the whole thing completely, because it doesn't serve the purpose. It doesn't serve the purpose that we're using it for now. Maybe it worked perfectly in the beginning, but now it just doesn't cut the mustard. And now we have to look at new ways to get the same problem solved. And often, like you were saying about the snake, there's a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of uprooting of the past. It's funny today. I got my hair cut today, and the hairdresser was
Looks
saying,
great, by the way.
"Oh, thank you. Yes." So
Silver
she
fox.
was, yeah, man, that's the look I'm going for.
I would be
Yeah, I'm
too
glad
if I let
glad you
it.
noticed. Now you got the whole transporter look going on there. You know, like you're about to kick some ass. So she was, so she was, she was doing part time landscaping, and she's saying, I've been digging holes, and then I got the machine. We talk about getting new techniques all the time. Everyone's after the new technique or the new tool. So she gets this tool. It's a hole driller, so she doesn't have to dig the holes anymore. She can just drill the holes with a big corkscrew. But now there's a new problem. And the problem is when she gets this thing going and it goes into the ground, it hits roots and jams the machine, and then it almost like knocks her off balance and throws her for a six. Maybe it spins around and hits her in the hand. So there's a new problem associated with that to fix the original problem. So in that metaphor, she's having to pull the machine out, go back to digging by hand and cutting the roots out, which is a big operation. It's not just digging holes anymore and getting on with. Now you've got to relay the whole ground. You've got to re-engineer everything. There's a lot more involved because, it's not as straightforward as maybe it was if you did it 3 years ago when the tree wasn't big enough to have roots like that, So when it comes to shadow work, some things, as you get going in it, it's like the more you do it, the longer you've been at it, the better and easier it becomes, hopefully, depending on how deep you go into it. A bit like jiu-jitsu, right? The more you're into it, the more you learn. But of course, then you're dealing with bigger problems on bigger scales and harder partners and all sorts of things. But you have a lot more to draw from to be able to deal with these problems. So, when we get into it and we're approaching it, and that was the other thing we talked a bit about, is like, how do you start? How do you start shadow work? Like, where do you begin? And for me, it reminds me of the rules of chess. Carefully you approach it. You take your time with all of this, because if we go up to the big scale, like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, if you go up to the big scale, like you were talking about, with a company the size of Evergrande, or like Enron back in the day, or now, we're talking about switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy, solar power. Like, that's a huge. It's not just a matter of going out and buying new cars. It's laying of new infrastructure. It's people's acceptance of that. It's what happens when all these massive conglomerates that control the world start collapsing. Who's going to take the weight of that? There's a lot to consider in all these changes. And that's why most people go, oh, well, I just, I'm okay. I'll just don't worry about it.
And you know what? I think, yeah, and that sometimes is like, can be such a something to stop people from doing so many things, right? Like, whether it be even like starting a business or anything, they go, well, geez, like, how do I get from where I am right now to that over there?
To there.
Yeah. It's so challenging. So it's like the classic, like, sorry to sound so cliche, but it's like, how do you eat an elephant, right?
One bite at a time.
Just one bite at a time, right? And so that, there's a really, like, the most simple kind of like shadow work stuff. It's funny. Like, for me as well, it's always been probably the area of like development that I have like avoided the most. Like most people, like, I don't think anybody's like, oh, I can't wait to get up and like journal about like, my, like, all the shitty parts about myself. You know what I mean? Like, that's not where everyone goes to initially. But there's a really simple kind of like process that that I think anyone that goes, oh well, where do you even start with this, should look up. And I've just pulled it up, because it's uh, uh, lost you, dude. Hey,
Hey, and we're
you
back.
are you back for good this time?
I hope so.
You look clear. So
Yeah.
where I
Okay,
was
good.
at just before you left. So just maybe we'll just touch just a little bit more on this shadow stuff, and then we can talk about something else, or we'll just riff, see where we go. But look, one of the things that I think is like, just to really frame it for because part of it, when we talk about it, it's like it kind of, people go, well, geez, well, what is it and how does it work? And like, it's a daunting thing, even when you're aware of it, right? You're like, oh God, you mean there's these like unconscious things happening inside of me that I'm not in control of, and that they're partially ruling my life? You know what I mean? That can be kind of scary.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're trying to do always, and this is how I think about shadow work, we go from it to I. That's what we want to do, right? We want to move from it to I, right? Because we know, as through all of our discussions that we've had, is that we're in this big, crazy, magical soup, right? Where everything, we're at the tip of the iceberg, or at the tip of the spear. It's non-dual, right? There's no there's no separation, right, between us.
Yep.
But what shadow work, why we have shadows, or why it's important to consider, is because these are the things that are holding us back, mostly from realizing that, because it's all pointing out there, right? It's that classic. Did I lose you again, bro? Are you still there?
No, I'm here.
Okay, you're there. Sorry, you got a bit fuzzy.
Yep.
It's the classic, like you, right? Pointing the finger out there. But there's that classic saying that when I point the finger out, there's three pointing back at me, right? So it's, we turn it to I, right? That's what we're trying to do. So what we need to do is have a simple way that we turn it into I. And that's all about
Mm.
perspective taking, right? So
Mm. Mm.
to touch on our topic of today, it's about like perceptions and potentials, right?
Mhm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
can I take the third person perspective on a situation and take the it perspective where it's something that's out there? So when I see something, so I'm going to use an example for you. And by the way, my wife's in the room now. She's probably going to laugh at me because this came up on the weekend. We were meeting with some friends, and
Mhm.
often when we get together with friends, what I like to do is I throw some things out into the conversation and see how people react, and to see
Mhm.
how we can mix it up and get a little something cooking, right? So couple of interesting things that I brought up. Okay, news pieces. Okay, so there was
Mhm.
a piece of news this weekend, right, where we have an ex SAS fighter, or sorry, an SAS U.S. Special Forces guy. You see this picture of him, and he is like just one of the buffest, meanest motherfuckers you've ever seen, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Went through a transitioned to a
Mhm.
female,
Mhm.
and then just had an MMA fight on the weekend, and then beat up his opponent, who was a biological female,
Mhm.
and choked her out. So she, that's her pronoun, is she, which I'm happy to
Mhm.
use,
Mhm.
went and beat up and choked out this female. Now this is a person who was, and I'm not going to have any judgment about this, but just putting it out
Mhm.
there that someone who was born a male, albeit in the wrong body,
Mhm.
psychologically, something in the internal of the eye was like, not, I'm a female, I feel like I'm a female, but went through puberty as a male, had all of the
Mhm.
like male hormones, fought in the war, you know what I mean, like fought as a special forces soldier,
Mhm.
then really decided um, to make that transition, not only to a female, but to a female MMA fighter, to fight against other, mostly genetic, like biologically born, like females, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you go, I mean, so you go like that. That's something that you throw that out there into a conversation, and there's gonna be some reaction to that, right? One way or the
Yeah.
other, right? One way or the other.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and I'm kind of like for me, I kind of just go, wow, like it doesn't have like a visceral, like I don't have a really serious reaction to it, but I see people
Mhm.
that do, and I see people go from
Mhm.
one, like I have both in my kind of circle, right? People who go from one side that are just like, this is absolutely fucking insanity. That's a
Mhm.
dude, and he beat up a chick, and this is fucking crazy. And what have we come to?
Mhm.
Versus the absolute opposite, which is gender is um, a thought, right? The
Mhm.
gender is a social construct,
Mhm.
and we are what we think we are, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I mean, like, I don't necessarily want to go down that particular rabbit hole here, but I think that this is the type of thing that when we talk about shadow work, when you throw that out into a conversation, for example, take a third person perspective
Mhm.
of how you respond to that if you want to figure out what parts of yourself are disowned.
Nice.
Right? Because what we do with shadow work is take what's disowned. It's not mine, it's yours. It's you out there and it's them out there. And we turn it into I, right? So if we want to know what is I that we haven't yet come to terms with, okay, read an article like that and watch how you react.
See how you react.
When you react, pick out your reaction and go, okay, there's something there that I should probably focus my attention on, and I should turn that it into an I. Yeah, I got to move it from out there as something that isn't me to me, because we know that as we want to be in second tier, right? We want to be one with everything.
Yes.
We want to walk into a space and not be fighting with people. We want to be able to take on every perspective, right? Because if we're fighting, if we're too busy fighting, then we're missing out on the fact that we're all completely already in communion. Right? So that's kind of the like crux of it, right? So you go, you can bang your drum and you can be angry and you can go and have a what do you call it when you hold up the signs and the placards?
A protest.
You can go and protest about it if you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have a powwow about it. Yeah.
You can do that. You're free to. You're free to.
Yeah.
But you're also free to integrate it into who you are, because you're just the universe unfolding, right? So let's try and get ourselves to a point where we're not so reactive to that stuff as it's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So there was one like little like just like let me just throw that out there and see what comes back from that. The interesting thing was, because that's such a like difficult, challenging topic that is so emotional, people didn't really want to they didn't want to start chewing on that one. I knew that was like, I was like, let's just see how we go with that one. It was kind of like, ooh, no one wanted to touch that, right? Because how you don't react to it is just another part of your shadow. Oh, are you trying to be too politically correct? Are you right? So it's not just how you react; it's how you don't react to it.
Don't react.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're non-reaction.
And the funny thing is, there's no like that's a really new happening in the world. So there's no real reactions out there to go, oh well, I agree with that reaction or this one. It's one or the other at the moment. And it's like, oh, geez, well, that kind of hasn't been in the noosphere long enough for us to see how that would play out.
It's at the bleeding edge of like political, like, like where you fit in the spectrum of all this, right? But just remember, you're the whole spectrum. You have the ability to tune in at every part of it, right? So when those like news stories or whatever come up, whether they're political like that or they're, if you want to know what the part of your shadow you need to like shed some light on, just videotape your reactions. Okay. And that will give you a great hint on what to start with. Okay. On what perception you need to take, on whose shoes you got to walk a mile in. You know what I'm saying? So that was one bit of interesting news that didn't quite like it. It was a non-reaction, but interestingly, the one that had a very, very harsh reaction of all things. Are you still with me, or have I lost you again?
Yeah. No, okay. I'm here.
Facebook stories by Ray-Bans. Do you know these? Have you seen this?
No.
the newest glasses by Ray-Bans and Facebook.
Mm,
Facebook and
mm.
Ray-Bans we all remember Google glasses.
Oh yeah, the new AR
New
VR.
Ray-Ban. They're called
Yeah,
well, yeah, they're called Facebook, they're called Ray-Bans stories, right?
right. Yeah.
Because
I'm with you now. Yep,
the whole
I
idea
did
is
see
that
these the other
now,
day.
instead of pulling my phone out to record you and do a
You just
story
got to
and post
there
it,
on your
all I got
face.
to do is touch it on here. Because remember, when Google Glasses came out, that was like, oh my God, you're
Mm,
creepy. You're recording me, yada,
mm,
yada, yada. There was all that.
mm,
But now they've done the best marketing thing that they could ever do to put this a little bit closer. And remember that when Google Glasses came out, people weren't doing Facebook and Instagram stories. That's
mm.
that has ushered in this technology, right?
It's a
So
reason
so we've
for it now. Yeah.
so we've evolved to a point where we go, well, there's nothing bizarre about me just recording all the normal everyday stuff I'm doing and sharing it with my people, right?
Mm,
And I
mm,
don't know about you, but I love stories. I love watching people's stories, right? Or I don't know,
mhm.
maybe I don't, but I'm certainly doing it. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
if I'm on my phone, like I could easily sit for 15 minutes and look through people's
Stories.
stories. And you know what? I actually makes me realize my connection even more to
Mm,
people because I
mm,
kind of go, I'm looking at the world through their perspective for a moment.
mm,
People who I don't necessarily always think about, talk to, communicate with. I have people now because I can see their like stories come up, or people who for me that will just comment or like send a like or like a love picture to like whether it be my dog or something that I'm doing, and I go, oh, that's actually enriched my connection with that person, right? Like
mm,
I actually have realized even more the communion that was always already there, and
mm.
my experience has just become a little bit richer from that because because I think it's a positive use of technology, right?
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
brought up these glasses, okay, in our group, there was 6 of us sat around. 5 of them were just like, this is just fucking this is crossing the line. This was like, what a useless piece of garbage. And like it was flowing at me. And it basically at one point got to like, well, if you get those, we can just easily not hang out with you. Right. Because it was like I said, if I pulled out my phone right now and did a quick
Mm.
little record and put it on
No,
Instagram,
no
which
one
I've
has a
done
problem.
many times, no one has a problem. I said the glasses
Mm.
have red lights on them, so it's not
You
like
can
I'm
see
going
when
around.
you're where they're on. Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't have them on, but I was just saying, like hypothetically, if I did, I go, you'd know
Mm.
that it was on. They'd be like, yeah, and it would be creepy. And like one of the person that I was talking with, she's a hairdresser, and I said, well, how
Mm.
cool would it be if you had the glasses on and you could be recording
And you
while
could
you're
see her doing your hair.
Yeah, I'm like, while you're cutting hair, how about you all? I'm like, because you have followers, you post stuff on Instagram, you
Mm.
want people to have to be able to experience what you're doing, and you know, what I mean? And they want it. It enriches their following of you, so why not? You know, and then,
Mm.
but for some reason, this was just a line too far. This
Mm.
was just you crossed the line, Facebook and Ray Bans, and the really fascinating thing was, so we have this kind of debate about it where I kind of went, look, because they're going, well, these are useless and they're, it's just creating this like, garbage and making us live in this like digital world, yada, yada, yada. And I was saying, well, for one, the digital world existed since the beginning of time,
Mm.
was already there. All we're doing now is getting tools to be able to experience it.
Exactly. Yeah, access it. Yeah.
Right,
Hmm.
right. Like it was there. Nobody went and created a dimension, right? The dimension was there. We've just put together the pieces to now be able to interact in that space together. So, I said to her, like, hey, because one of my friends was particularly like perturbed by it. I said, if you're finding that you're having a really strong reaction, it's like, have a look at what that is, like what's bringing this up inside of you. And I kind of thought that would have been it, right? I kind of thought like that was it. It was Sunday afternoon. We kind of like moved on and chatted about other stuff. But then Monday, she sent me a big response to our conversation and talking about like, these tech, it kind of came out like her shadow sort of came out. It's these tech billionaires with all this money, and they should be doing this. And she had this whole story attached to that, and it was sort of all got wrapped up in these little pair of glasses, right?
Yeah, it was a catalyst.
And for one, I said, well, the tech billionaires, I said, look, I mean, you mean like Elon Musk? Because she's saying, they should be putting their money into like, sustainable stuff. And I said, like Elon Musk, who's basically like on the bleeding edge of how we use our energy in a better way, and how we like get rid of like our fossil fuel addiction. And I'm like, believe me, not everybody has this intention that you think they do, right? I said, what about if it was actually that we don't need to now have this phone that we know everything comes into making these phones, and the fact that most people really what they want to do is just share a few photos and videos on social media with their friends. They don't need insane computing power. They don't. They want to simply connect with friends and family. So what if instead of having 10 pairs of shitty sunglasses that you don't value, that are throwaways, that instead of that we have one pair of sunglasses that we really kind of value, because we treat it like we do our phone, and we can actually get rid of our phones because the technology then is just in these one pair of glasses. Like, could that actually maybe be what we're moving towards here? Or is it just an evil empire of people trying to force us down some technological rabbit hole? You know what I mean?
They're turning us all into agents. Everyone can spy on everybody. Rah, rah, rah. Yeah.
So it's just really interesting, right? To see like these simple things. How do we react to it? And then like, how do we rub up against it?
Well, this is beautiful. Sorry, you finish your thought.
No, and like I sometimes am like, I'm aware that I can be one where I will usually, more often than not, go to the really like positive place with it, because I generally believe for someone to have become like a tech billionaire in the Western world, that at their root they have to have had a good intention, and that maybe not everybody uses their technology, or not everyone that uses it is completely aligned with their vision. But I go, you don't get to there unless you're trying to bring humanity up with you. So and that could be part of my shadow, right? And because shadow isn't always that it's this negative thing. It can be over glorifying. It can be worshiping other people, right? It can be. So yeah, just acknowledging that not to say that my reaction is a greater one, but just that two different reactions where I'm going, wow, cool, one step closer to what I believe is going to be an augmented reality, right?
Mm, mm,
Where we live in the digital world as much as we live in our
in
real
the
world,
physical.
and that the lines between that get a little bit blurred. And
Mm,
again, to go back to like what I've said um before, because one of the things that came up in that conversation was one of them saying, well, then we're forced to live in that when I just want to be at one with nature and be spiritual and da 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 da. And I just went back to the and maybe this is my shadow like showing up, but I just went, hey, then go live in a monastery, because that's an option for you. If you
mm,
really
mm,
just want to live spiritually and just want to, or do you want to have a balance, right,
mm,
between those worlds? Anyhow, it was just fascinating to me to see, like, in living color, how these simple, what you think, a commercial for a pair of sunglasses is
mm,
this polarizing thing where we all have a different perspective of that particular piece of technology, how it gets marketed to us, and then our reaction to it is like, can be visceral,
mm,
right?
mm. Well, that,
Anyhow,
like when we started, there's a lot of those situations happening at the moment, and um, with a lot of these things that are coming out, these potentials, um, it's like that old saying, with electricity, it can cook a man's meal or it can cook the man. Everything that's coming now has that potential to be, part of a utopian future or part of the dystopian thing that destroys everything as well. Everything can be a weapon or a tool. It just depends, how we perceive it, how we look at it. And a lot of the time, like in the example you're given, there's a side for or is a side against. And this is something I think we needed to touch on probably last week in terms of the laying out the foundation, is that in this infinite field of infinite possibility, every potential exists on both sides to every degree. Like this symbol behind me, like one side's negative. You've got little bit negative, not really a negative, kind of mildly annoying, to, apocalyptic Holocaust, and over here you've got, yeah, kind of okay. It's kind of a bit better, or, peace, love, and mung beans on earth forever and all throughout the universe and all space of time, right? So now that you know that there's a divide there, then you can choose at what degree you play in and what you focus on, and you don't have to be all the way over and anti everything, and because you're worried about all the terrible things that can happen. You don't have to be so positive that you maybe willingly ignoring things because that's what you want to focus on as well. You can find a balance where it's like, well, the potential is there for all these terrible things to happen, but probably will supersede that technology anyway before it gets there. It's kind of like the old Bond movies, whatever the device was that the supervillain had to take over the world. Like if you go back into the old movies of the 60s, they're commonplace today. Like no one's like, oh, that's a super weapon anymore. That's just kind of like, oh yeah, well, that's been around forever. It's like your toaster now. Everyone's got one.
mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you were talking about the digital dimension always being there, because, if we want to get onto the, let's say, extrasensory perception and, psychic ability, then remote viewing is something that's been, come up in conspiracy theory. It's been around a long time. People call it astral projection, all that sort of stuff. And when you look at these glasses, that's kind of like a prosthetic for people who can't already do it. At least it's just training you on how to think like being able to put your consciousness outside of your body, perhaps into someone else's perspective in a different place, space, or time.
I have a feeling we're going to go in an interesting place. I need a 2-minute break. Is that cool?
No problem. Let's all take a break, everybody.
I just really need to pee.
All right. Well, you go do that.
Just before, right before we met, I went and I had a 5K run on the treadmill. So I've been trying to hydrate, and I've just drinking this
You've
more
overdone
water.
it.
So I really got to pee. I'll be right back.
All right. No worries. Let's play some music at the moment. Wait for Andy. If anyone has any questions or wants to come on and join the stream, feel free. Let's put up the link here for you. How are we going so far, people? Are you enjoying the show? Leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the heart, give us some love. Where's that? There it is. There's the link if you want to get on.
Sorry, bro. You there?
Here's a little visual.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Let's hope this works. Things have been a bit glitchy today, as you're probably aware. Hey, and we're back. Sorry about that, everyone. Like I said, we're having frustrating times with the internet here. Thanks for the comment, Sharf. And here we are, and we're back.
Just on this call. Hey,
Feeling better?
yeah. Sorry, I lost you there too, and I tried to come back. Were you gone?
We dropped out on this side as well, but
Oh,
anyway,
man.
we're all good.
Okay.
We're here now. I know it's painful now.
Hey, it's
Part of my
hey, look,
shadow work experience is
yeah. It's
dealing
like
with slow
not
internet and
not like smashing your computer into bits.
yeah, I'm tempted,
S-
but
So
no, that's not going to do any good.
you were starting to mention. Well, look, before I think we were kind of gonna you were about to kind of like go off from shadow work, but one of the things that I thought might be really interesting just to touch on,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where one of the things I want to cover when we do our workshopping, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
um, is there's a really simple process called the 3-2-1 process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, really simple shadow work stuff. Can I cover it just real quick? Just touch on
Yeah,
it, and then
sure.
we'll.
Of course you can.
So this is like basically a technique, the 3-2-1 process that you can do on your own as often as you like, and it basically to help you manage your own shadow tendencies. Okay, so remember that like the whole purpose of shadow work is to take the disowned parts of ourselves and own them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we take the disowned, and so we turn the it to an I, right? So the 3-2-1 process involves like addressing your shadow part first in the third person, so the it, and then in the second person to the you, and then
Mm-hmm.
finally in the first person, which is the I, right? So you move it from the it to the you to the I. That are you with me so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you can kind of think of it like if it's your shadow, right? So it's like this disowned part of yourself. You want to face it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you want to face your shadow. You want to talk to it. So you face it, it's an it over there. You want to talk to it, it's a you. You've done this, or you've been this way, or you're so beautiful, or whatever it is. And then to an I, right? So face, talk, be. Okay. So I'll pull up a little excerpt from, there's a really amazing book. One of my mentors, teachers, incredible, in my opinion, the most incredible sort of person in the transformative people space that's still alive is a guy called Ken Wilber. So he's the guy. He's a guy who, in my opinion, teaches the teachers. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you go talk to Tony Robbins and say, "Hey, who's been the most influential person that's taught you the most?" He'll say, like, Ken Wilber, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
so he touches on this really simple way of using this in one of his books, and it goes like this. It's a quick like 5 steps, and so I'll just touch on it now. Then we'll go when we do our workshopping. We'll go deep in this and how we kind of do it. But this is just to give a little taste for anyone that's watching. So first thing in the morning, right? So before you get out of bed, and so often I'll do this like wake up in the morning, still laying in bed, review our dreams. And the reason I was thinking of this is because I could feel we were starting to go on to some little talk about the astral plane and the dream world. And so this is like, so first thing in the morning, get it before you get out of bed, like review your dreams in your mind and find someone who showed up in that dream where there was like an emotional charge, positive or negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go, okay, I've had this dream, this person. And so this would be maybe if it's not a dream that you're controlling, right? This isn't necessarily like a this is you've woken up and you remembered this dream. So you find someone that you've had this emotional charge with, positive or negative. Step 2, face that person, holding them in mind. So if it was a monster like chasing you and you were running away from it, turn and like face that monster, right? If it's your boss, if your boss is like nagging you, or like I've had dreams before where I've had like someone like, you know, a scary person like wanting to like have a physical like altercation with me. So then you face that person, hold them in mind, talk to that person, okay? Resonate with them. Hear what they have to say to you, right? Talk to them. Finally, be that person or that monster or whatever by taking their perspective. Okay. And so, for the sake of this exercise, when you do it, this isn't necessarily like going deep and journaling. And this is like you're in bed, you haven't got up yet. You're just, this is the simple, like for someone who goes, oh, the shadow work seems too challenging and difficult, or I don't want to go there. This is like you're in bed, you've had this dream, this person comes up, face them, look at them, see them, talk to them, resonate with them, hear what they have to say back to you. And then be that person, take their perspective. Okay. And then before going to bed, okay, choose a person during the day, right, who either disturbed you or that you were attracted to, okay, during the day. Face them, talk to them, be them, right? So the similar process that we do with our dream, which is a really simple way of dealing with our shadow, because probably the stuff that turned up, because remember, if it's turning up in our mind, it's a part of us, right? Because we know that at the end of the day, when we go to the fullest of the fullest capability that we have, it's all a part of us, right? So if I look at you and I'm having a charge with you, it is truly a part of me. It's because I'm the universe unfolding and we're all the universe unfolding together, right? So the simple non-evasive sort of way of like starting with this stuff is with a dream, because it's like it's just a thing that never happened. It's a thing that was just the like, but we can play with it in that way, right? Laying in bed, and you don't have to make a big deal about it. You haven't got out of bed yet. You're laying in bed and you just wake up and go, oh, that monster was chasing me. Face it, see the monster, see this thing that scared you. Talk to them. What do you want? What is it you want to do? What do you want from me, monster? And then wait and hear what it says back to you. Maybe it says something like, I'm just actually trying to protect you. Oh, I was running away from you. Because you were this big, scary monster. You're this big thing that's not me. It's a thing that's over there that isn't me. And then in that conversation, you find out, oh, well, I'm here to scare all those other bad things away. Right? I'm here to protect you. And then be that monster. Get in the monster's shoes and see what it's like to be in the shoes. And then it's, I'm here to protect Brett. I'm that part of Brett that is here to look after him and make sure that he doesn't get hurt today. Or you know what I mean? So then all of a sudden we kind of go, oh shit, wait a second. You know, we get bit discombobulated because we go, it shakes us out of we were so certain that life was the way that we had imagined it with a brief glance, or where we don't really want to look at it. So when we practice it like that in the morning and then at night again, and we think about during the day that person or that thing that we really, because what we generally do mostly is project our stuff out onto other people and either go, oh my God, Brett's so amazing. He's so great at like technology and putting himself out there and creating communities. And he's so good at that. Man, I wish I was good at that stuff. Right. And then we go, well, wait a second. Well, then if I take your perspective on that and go, well, wait a second, I have the ability to then own that stuff, right? For me, and it becomes something that isn't out there, because remember, if it's out there, it's we have the we generally have the opportunity to incorporate or integrate it into our own being, right? So anyhow, that's just a really simple kind of way that we can take that concept of the shadow and go, well, how does it actually work in me, right? So we go.
It's beautiful. Can I just interject there? It's beautiful that you bring that up, because if you can see it, we always take the negative aspect first. Oh, if I can see it in others, it's in me. That's like been going around a lot. But all those people you admire, all those abilities and skills and ways of being that you wish you could be just like them, you wouldn't be able to perceive that if it wasn't inherent in you, right? And so the flip side of the shadow work, the best part about it, is that you can embody, you can own those things that you admire in others, that you wish you could have, that others people seem to have that you don't. And one of the byproduct of that is jealousy and envy almost dissolves completely, because you're not like, oh, that rich billionaire tech guy should be spending his money on blah blah blah. You go, well, I could probably go and do something like that, and maybe I may or may not be a billionaire, but I could probably generate enough income. That person's surely can't be that much smarter or that much better. They're a human being. They have a brain. I have a brain. They have the same environment. We're in this, reality. We share this reality. So I have the opportunities they have. And maybe if I can leverage my abilities, I'd be able to get to a point where I could, have the choice to how I spent that fortune, for example, going back to the example you gave.
Yeah, well, and look, the thing about shadow work is that that's one of the reasons, like, because everybody thinks that we're trying to fix something, right? Everybody's got their, happiness project that they're working on, or their self-improvement project, or their I'm disconnected project. And to go back to what I always bang on about is the Eden myth, right? What is it that I need to do to get reconnected, to be more connected, to feel more connected,
to get invited back into heaven?
Where you go. So when we think about shadow work, we even make it so, like, we go, oh, it's about fixing the bad parts of myself. You need to go, no, it's actually just about seeing any of the charge, and you go, you're not fixing something bad. It's about where can I find potential that was already there, and the stuff inside of me because someone goes, like, the classic thing, if you're doing any kind of like work with entrepreneurs or anything in that space, people are like, oh, I want to make a difference, but I don't know how. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what my thing is, right? Well, when you use these simple little tools like that 3-2-1 process, it to I, it to me to I, or sorry, it to you to I, right? We move that stuff that excites us out there closer to a part of who we are, then all of a sudden we go, shit, I got something that I'm even more excited about getting up and doing tomorrow, right? And that's going to be how I make my difference in the world. It's like, pay attention to how your system is reacting to this stuff out there that you're not aware of, that's not at the front of your mind. That's how that shadow stuff becomes just another layer in what we're talking about, which is kind of this map of human potential, right? So we kind of go like, we have these stages that we've kind of touched on a few different bits, like in our chats. We've kind of talked about states, different states that we can be in: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, right? And how our brain is behaving when we're in these different states, to these different stages. So imagine that at every one of those stages that we can inhabit, we can also be in these multiple states of consciousness within that state, right? So you go, what about all, like, think about the potentials and the possibilities, right? The one moment that I tuned in earlier when you were having your conversation earlier today, you were going like, I might be evil. I might become evil. Right? That was like the one moment. I was in between meetings. I was in between freaking Skype meetings, and I just tuned in and saw that, and I had laughed to myself. So yeah, that's this potential, right? That's a place we can play. That's a place we can play in, and that doesn't. And you know what the beautiful thing about being a human being is? We can play in that space without actually doing that.
Following through.
That's why we have role-playing games. That's why we have BDSM. That's why all that stuff exists. You can go, you can play those things out, right? They're not necessarily this evil thing that's out there that someone else has. It's within me. And when we start to explore in it, we might find that there's something we can play with here, that there's a little potential, right? There's a little potential for our being to inhabit for a short period. Anyhow, so interesting, so I'll let you kind of go, because I felt like you were sort of going to go down a little path on something regarding dream state. Were you going there?
Yeah. So you were talking about, you mentioned the Ray-Bans, the virtual reality glasses.
Well, remember, they're not virtual reality. All they are is a camera that sits on your glasses.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, but that's the beginning, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Eventually they'll have the display. So the thing about technology is all of it is based on the properties that are within us at deeper structures. So, everything that's coming out, like virtual reality, augmented reality, even social media right now, like this is a prosthetic for telepathy. We're having a conversation, we're transmitting information backwards and forwards through this apparatus. But hopefully one day, we won't need it. We'll just be able to tune into the frequencies that are moving around all the time. But the thing is, it's like, if you didn't know that this ability existed, if it was in your shadow, right, how would you ever become aware of it, right? You'd need some event to either shake you into awareness, or you'd need something in your environment to train your mind to be able to accept that this is a possibility. So when you were talking about people being able to record just by tapping on their glasses, and they could upload stories to, Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform exists or is yet to exist, then we can slide into that person's point of view temporarily and see what's happening in their world. And, you can be, for a minute, I can be you, Andy, or you could be me for a minute, or we could be somewhere on the other side of the planet, or, we could tap into an event that happened last week, or we could be a woman for a few moments, or a woman can be a man, or all those possibilities start to exist. And when I start to look at that, it just reminds me of remote viewing. There was a program back in the Cold War. They made a movie about it, a spoof, The Men Who Stare at Goats. It was about these psychic spies that would use a form of astral projection, or they'd call it remote viewing, and they would project their consciousness into a different space and time outside of their body. And they weren't limited by time or space. They could go pretty much anywhere. And so, for people just hearing about this, they probably go, well, that sounds like woo-woo. That sounds a bit out there. It's on the fringe. I need my tinfoil hat to actually listen to this. But for people who are doing it and people who know how to do it, it's kind of like, it's just how it works. It's not an ability. It's something that's inherent in human beings, but perhaps we're not trained on how to do it. So a device like this I look at it as like a prosthetic. Steve Jobs, when he talked about the computer, he said it's like a bicycle for your brain. So maybe all these new technologies coming out are just bicycles for your psychic ability that you don't know how to use. That's always
there. What? And none of them are nearly as good as this one here.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because let's riff on, let's just have a quick riff on, and maybe we do a whole other like conflab. Maybe we have a whole other conflab on like astral projection, remote viewing, all that stuff, because it's fast. It's a fascinating thing, right? So I'm gonna,
for sure.
Can I riff on this a little?
Can I just add, just kind of throw in the mix, because I think it'll be great 100%. For you to use, is there was I'm going on YouTube surfing along like I usually do, and there was this thing that came up about a monk in Tibet, in the Golden City, Lhasa, who was in meditation for like 7 or 10 days or whatever, right? And he's like in this suspended animation. It must be winter because he's covered in blankets right up to his cheeks, and he's just sort of like statuesque, not moving. You look at the body, it's like the awareness, the body's still alive, but the awareness is not in the body, it's somewhere else. It's like, well, where are they? What are they doing? Are they interacting with other beings, other entities? Are they on? Where are they? And so for me to draw, to put some framework so people can make the jump of where I see where they're going. It's kind of like, they're in their consciousness is like in the living internet of the universe, and it's who knows what they're doing. They might be in chat groups, they might be on calls this one,
or imagine the dream world, but you're awake, right? So we're talking about like so essentially where we get, like where you can get to with like deep meditative practice is to go, okay, I'm essentially like, in Zen, because I'm a Zen guy, we don't necessarily like to talk about we don't like to talk about what's inside the computer, you know what I mean? And what's happening and dissecting it all the time. That's just not our flavor, because our flavor is a bit more brown rice, you know what I mean? And not making a big deal about this stuff, because it's kind of like, of course, of course, right? So a classic. So I'll preface it because I have to, because I'm Zen. I got to. It's like so. For example, Dogen in the year like 800, he had monks come to him and say like, basically saying like, okay, we're going to start practicing with you because we want to have these great, amazing experiences, and we want to gain these abilities, and we want to get this magic. Okay. And I'm totally paraphrasing here. And he basically said, if you think that's magic, what the fuck is all this? Okay, paraphrasing, right? He goes, miracles, you want great miracles. This is the miracle. Fucking pay attention.
It's happening right now.
So our whole lineage and our whole sort of like what we're trying to like shake people into the realization of is look around. This is the great miracle. All that other stuff is just fancy fucking neon flashing lights on a roadside that will eventually the bulbs will break and you will realize it's essentially like driving a car through the desert, and you see and these like visions and astral projections and everything that you're seeing are essentially these flashing signs on the side of the road that are distracting you from this amazing landscape that you're in the whole time. So it's like, so by the way, don't spend your whole life driving on the highway and missing out on this beautiful painting that you're driving through to go and find this flashing neon light in the middle of the desert, because that's essentially what we're talking about when we talk about astral projection or being awake when you're dreaming. You know what I mean? That's like, I want to preface this by saying that that's a small miracle. This is the big miracle, right? This is the big, that's a small one, but it's fun to riff on because it's like a gateway drug, right? It's like if you can't see the incredible, like that you're in a living painting, and you need to go have a piece of chewing gum or a piece of candy to get you to go along on the ride with mommy. See, here, have this piece of candy and come with me. If that's what it will take to get you into maybe a set practice, right? Because what I found is trying to learn astral projection or lucid dreaming, right? Was kind of a catalyst. It kind of goes, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this a practice every day. I'm going to do this thing. And every night before I sleep, I'll do X, Y, Z. And it's actually just about training yourself to follow a set path. And then what it ends up doing, like I ended up through looking at astral projection and dreams, all that stuff, you find a great guy, by the way, called Andrew Holacek, who's still alive now. And he is like the best Tibetan teacher that teaches about dream yoga. What we're talking about really is dream yoga, right? It's to be able to continue your practice while you're dreaming, right? And I remember doing astral projection and lucid dreaming doing courses with Andrew Holacek versus after. It changes. You go from Baywatch to your intention sort of shifts. You know what I mean? About how you spend your time in the dream world as well versus how because it all it does is becomes an extension of your waking life. By the way, another great movie about
waking life. Yeah.
Waking life. So your waking life and your dreaming life doesn't. All of a sudden, you don't want to go and misbehave in your dream world either, because you realize, it's not that different, So I am who I am when I'm awake or when I'm dreaming. You know what I mean? It's. But one of the things, because I just remember being in that place and how exciting it was one of the simple, and I think I even had a conversation with you about this once, these simple techniques. And again, just to get people a bit excited about what's going to happen when we start doing our workshops, is some real serious work and serious methods that you're going to take away and practice this stuff and change your waking and dreaming life. But one of the techniques that I always love, and that people could just try this if they're watching, if you want to have a lucid dream, one of the best ways is to set yourself up while you're awake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during your day, right? So I remember that one of the things that I was taught early on was numbers, right? Numbers in your dream, you can't hold them. You can't hold on to them, right? So you can see a lot of stuff. You can see people's faces, everything, and your brain doesn't notice that they're like shifting and changing and moving. But numbers, right, is something you can sort of like grasp onto. And what you'll find, and your brain has easily become conscious of it, you can't hold numbers in place. They move around, the numbers change. It just, for some reason in the dream world, it doesn't work very well. So one of the great ways to...
Or they always show up as 11, or 22, or 33.
Sure, but even then they're like moving and
They're still fluid, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the great things I'll talk about quickly, two times when I was like getting my practice of getting like lucid dreaming set up. So during the day, I would go, okay, so I'm going to take a thing that I'm going to meditate on. So I'll spend 10 minutes meditating on this thing and basically visualizing it and making it so that when it turns up in my dream, that will be a reminder to me that I'm dreaming. Because what you want to do if you're lucid dreaming is you want to realize you're dreaming, but not excite yourself so much that it wakes you up and knocks you out of it. And you're like, fuck. And then good luck getting back to sleep, by the way, at that point. Good luck if you have realized you're dreaming and you had a moment of like being in control of it. Good luck getting back to sleep after that. You're done. You're like, oh my God, I was fucking so close. I was almost there. So for me, first time I really was like practicing it. I was like, okay, it just happened that when I was reading this book or something, and there happened to be like a $20 note, a Australian $20 note on like my table or something. So I'm reading it because it's like, find something that has numbers on it, So I'm like, okay, cool. So I pick up this red $20 note and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, it's got numbers on it. It's got like the security code. So I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it, I'm meditating with that. I'm like, okay, basically like with the intention for this to show up in my dream, And then I have a whole set of techniques that you should do while you're laying asleep, but I'm going to keep those a surprise. You got to come to the party.
Can't wait.
That one. So you got to follow these particular techniques, but the start of it was have this thing and be focusing on it and meditating on it. So when it turns up in the dream, you realize you're dreaming. So I have this dream, okay, and to this day, still one of the most, like real life, like I was sure that this was real. I'm in Vegas. I do like Vegas. I like to spend time there. I'm in Vegas and I win on a machine. We call them pokies in Australia, but we call the slots. I win a slot machine. Okay. And it's like jackpot, $350 million. Right. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, it's happened. Like, that's it. I'm not going to work. It's done. It's done and dusted. And I'm literally in the dream. What's happening is, green, because it's so in America all the money's green. You know, you spent time there. Dog same. So $100 bills are just spitting out of this machine, and I'm literally taking it and just putting it into bags, big black garbage bags, Glad bags, tying it up, putting it over there. So I'm surrounded in these like big black garbage bags of cash, right? And I'm going like, it just keeps coming and coming, right? And by the way, doing my shadow work later and looking at the dream, abundance. This dream's about abundance. This is just about the fact that like it's all there, it's all coming. You know what I mean? It's just so much of it. It's just you got to just grab it. So I'm taking it, I'm all in. I get it all in the bags. I'm having it all tied up. All of a sudden, the machine is sputtering. I'm like, it's still going, ring, ring, ring. And there's all these people around me going like, hey, it's still going. What's wrong? What's wrong with the machine? I'm like, I don't know. And I'm telling people like, oh, hey, take a bag. Just take one. You can go, right? People are like, oh my God. And I'm just giving out these bags of like $100 bills, just going, this is amazing. And the thing that was feeling so good in the dream is the people watching. And I'm just like, yeah, take a bag, like handing it off. Then all of a sudden, this like, doesn't want to work. So I like reach my hand up like under the machine. I'm like, oh yeah, there's something stuck in there. And I'm like, fucking, what is it? And then I pull it out and it's a $20
bill.
A red Australian $20 bill. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, huh? And I like turn it over and I look at it and I just see the numbers like all
numbers are away.
And I was like, and boom, I woke up and I was like, fuck. I was like, whoa. I go, man, I'm like, and because it was so real. Like it was just like no dream I'd had before. It was just the lights. If anyone's ever been in Vegas, the lights and just, it was like, I was there. I'm like, whoa, that's so crazy. Couldn't get back. Didn't sleep that night. Next couple nights, trying again. A few nights later, go through the same practices during the day. We'll cover those practices later and what you do while you're laying in bed. But the start of it being visualizing this thing. Okay, when it turns up in the dream, I'll know, and then I'll be in control. So that night, I'm out on a fishing boat, okay, off the coast of Prince Edward Island, my hometown, east coast of Canada, big place for lobster fishermen. I'm out on the boat and I'm with a buddy of mine, actually a guy who happens to be in Australia now. He's in South Australia working in the mines, but he was a lobster fisherman. And so we're on this boat together. And he's got me working and he's old. Like he's like this old version of him, right? And we're loading up lobsters into these white styrofoam eskies, okay? Or what do we call them in North America? Coolers, like a cooler, right? These styrofoam coolers. And I've got these lobsters that I'm stacking in. And this dream felt like it was about 2 years long. Okay. It was the weirdest thing. It was similar to the other one where it's just bags and bags of money. Look, this abundance thing again, right? This like this thing about abundance, but these lobsters, I'm stacking them in, right? And I was probably like 200 I could fit in these coolers. And then I put one over there and it's the same thing. And it was like, felt like it was going on and on and on. And I'm going like, we're going to empty the sea. Like we are going to empty the sea here. Like it just felt like it was going on forever. And all of a sudden I look up at him and I'm holding one of the lobsters and I'm like, this is cooked. We're pulling them out of the sea, by the way, right? We're out on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And a lobster is like black and orange when it's in the sea. You cook it, it turns red.
Red.
Okay. What do we call Australian $20 bills?
Red lobsters.
Lobsters, right? There's a lobster down there. We call them lobsters in Australia, right? So here it was. So all of a sudden I'm looking at this. I'm like, it's cooked. And I look at him and he's like, yeah, it's cooked. It's cooked. And I look at it and I go, oh. And then, boom, kicks in. I realize this is a dream. This is a dream. And then, you know what I mean? Then you start to go. And I'd already had that little bit of practice of like going, okay, I'm not like, you know, it wasn't as big as a shock this time. It was a laugh. And there was the universe trying to play a joke on me, right? Going, you thought you were going to see a $20 bill. You saw a lobster, right? A red lobster. And I was just like, oh, fuck. And so I just chuckled to myself. I look at him. He like winks at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm out of here, bro. I'm going to go exploring. You know what I mean? So then, yeah, anyhow. So that's just my my intro to lucid dreaming story for you.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Yeah, lucid dreaming is a great place to practice things and to get accustomed to things that you haven't experienced yet. I remember, you know, one of the workshops I did was specifically on how to tap into that area of your mind, and so you could use the night as a way to keep your practice going, like you were saying, and instead of just, you know, going unconscious and then 8 hours go by or however many hours and you wake up and you got to start all over again, you can actually not waste the night and you can continue all through the night. And the thing about going into those dreamlike states is that your time dilates and it distorts in ways, like you said, you felt like it was 2 years. You know, in 5 minutes of real time, how much time in dream time is there? Well, you don't really know. It's hard to gauge. And the more you practice it, the more real it becomes and the less you can distinguish the difference between waking and dreaming. And so one thing that was really cool about the workshop that I experienced is we learned all these techniques like what you're talking about. So we're practicing in the room. We're not just hearing about it. We're getting the exercise. We work out how to do it. Everyone understands it. And then we go into the practice and we actually practice in the room these techniques. And so, you know, third round in, people are starting to have experiences, and they, you know, in the breaks, during meal breaks and stuff, they're going, oh, I had this experience and I was over here and I saw this person, I had this thing happen to me, and then I could defy, you know, laws of physics, and I could lift off the ground and I could move objects around. It was all these crazy, amazing, cool things that were happening. And here I am going like, man, I think I'm pretty adept at this stuff. I've had lots of experiences, but in the workshop, I'm getting nothing. You know, I'm just sort of on the edge of wakefulness and asleep for hours, you know. And it was funny because we'd do this practice, we'd have the exercise, and then we'd get time to lie down and maybe go into a dream. And so all these people in this room, like, you know, 500 or 1,000, I don't even know how many people are in this huge ballroom. They're all sitting up doing this practice in a, you know, cross-legged position or on a chair, or was kneeling, depending on, they were upright anyway. And then when they got the break, they'd all lie down and then they'd go into dreams, you know. And some people were so in tune with each other, you could have dreaming groups where people could dream and meet in the dreams together, you know. And they'd wake up and other side of the room,
That's
people would talk about having shared a dream, which is really interesting. And so when everyone got to lie down, everyone would lie down and I'd have nowhere to lie down. And like, I'm the only person in a room of like 500
Really?
people that
That's
has
bizarre.
to stay. Yeah, it was so weird, right? So I'm getting like the advanced course here. It's like, no, you don't get to lie down. If you're going to be dreaming, you're going to be dreaming sitting up. You know, we're going to make sure you're right on the edge here. So, this turned into, 3 sessions turned into 4 and 5. I don't know how many sessions went past, and I'm getting to the point where I can't tell whether I'm awake or asleep. It's all blending, and I'm right in that twilight space. And I'm zipping in and out. I'm getting flashes of things, and I'm not sure if I'm imagining this or I'm dreaming it or if I'm in a different dimension. And I don't know what's going on. And then, all of a sudden the workshop's over. It's like, well, I don't even know if I've really had any experiences here. People are going to dinner and having a great time and talking about, some people are meeting Jesus and other people are having, interludes, sexy encounters with long lost lovers. And I'm like, where's my turn? I'm just been sitting up the whole time. I didn't get a chance to do any of this stuff. Anyway, I get home, man, I sleep for probably nearly 2 days straight. And then when I come out of it, when I go into meditation, I'm straight out there in this nether world, And then the next night I go down and I'm dreaming like full on. It's like high definition, really hard to tell the difference. And it's like you're saying, you have to look at these cues of these numbers. You have to really check in and go, am I dreaming? Is this a dream? Because I can't tell the difference anymore. And so you start to have all these experiences inside your dream when you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm having a dream. Now let's start to see what we can do here. Can I direct it? What am I listening to? What are the messages from these dream characters? What are they telling me? What's the theme of the story? What's the abstract metaphor here? What's happening?
Really, it comes down to what's my shadow telling me. This is mostly my subconscious trying to give me hints and clues on how I should be behaving, what direction I should be going. So it's like, what are all these disowned parts of me that I haven't integrated yet?
Exactly. And so you're going through all this process and you can feel your brain rewiring during the day, like from the experience you had in the night before. It's like you're dwelling on it, you're thinking about this experience, and you can feel the neurology reorganizing itself. And then after a little time doing this and practicing this, these new experiences that you're having in the dream world, let's say, they start to show up in the real world. They start to show up in reality, right? So like for you in your story with the lobsters, well, maybe you just start, $20 bills just start showing up all over the place in your life. It's really exciting. So
what started showing up for me after that sort of series of dreams was just actually anyway, it took some reflecting on it. It was around abundance at the time. At that time, I was growing a bit. I was at the sort of beginning stages of growing my travel agency business, and I just done the first $1 million in sales, right? And that so part of it was that where I had just kind of gone I got to that point where I was like, I've got a vision, right? I know what I want to do, and I know it's about helping people, right? So in the dream, it was that was the thing. It was me the first one in Vegas. I'm just like, here you go, just take a bag of money. You know what I mean? It was kind of just the feeling of it was just that there's, that it's kind of this endless, it's this thing that's here that you just tap into it. So that's what was happening at the time. So it was this, I was in this space of going, I have my vision. I know what I'm trying to do here. I'm in a good place with it, and I'm just doing it. And then, it just, I'd fallen into part of the mix between what I was doing in my daily life right? And the practices of actually going, well, like learning how to grow the business and just learning all the parts of it that I didn't know, and, you know, sharpening all my tools in that. And then combining that with this like extra sort of hours in the at night where what I was really exploring was abundance and just that whole thing. It allowed me to fall into the rut of then of something that someone before me had already done, and I had just, you know, I'm just navigating through and kind of whoa, I'm in the rut, and then it's, you know, it's like if you're in a
In a
four-wheel drive
slipstream.
trying to like get through this crazy thing, then you fall into the rut and you just woof, right, and then it was off. Woof. There was challenges along the way and everything, but it was like once I kind of found that space between like waking and the work that had to be done there versus what I had to believe, which was that, oh yeah, that this can happen, right? Because the thing that was like that I still will always remember about that initial dream, the Vegas one, was like people win jackpots every day.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to people. And it happened to me in that dream. It was so real. It was like like I basically like I don't know if what had happened in that dream and the effect it had on me, my psyche, and my way I perceive the world would be any different than someone who had actually won that jackpot. It was it was that real, right? And it opened up my mind to what was the potential of that happening, right? And then I was able to kind of apply that to my real waking life and the way I view. So then I, you know, when I did my kind of shadow work, I'm like, well, what are those bags of money that I'm just giving away willy-nilly, right? And here's where I actually got to with it, which is just to cap that one, is I was like, well, really, they're just pieces of paper, right? They're just pieces of paper with value on them. That's all it is. They're just pieces of paper with value. And because I was selling travel and essentially selling tickets,
Tickets.
I was selling pieces of paper, right? I was giving away. I was going like trading pieces of paper, right? But that held like the value that me and that person had kind of like would have worked through together to go, okay, well, this is sort of the journey we're creating for you. You're going to do X, Y, Z, and it was just handing out these like bags of paper and me getting joy from it. And then also getting that it was this flow, this financial flow that I had kind of fallen into, right? So, you know, we create meaning about every, like someone, if you spoke to like a psychologist, they might say, no, actually it was about, but we create meaning in our lives, right? That's part of it. So for me, I was able to kind of go, I can see how that kind of fits in with what I'm doing here. And it was just like an added sort of, you know, it was just like rocket boosters on my own path that I was on, right? And it was a mix between, yeah, taking perception, taking perspective, having this, you know, mindset of like endless potential, and then putting a video camera on disowned parts of myself. Parts of myself that were it over there that I came into relationship with by making them a you, and then eventually becoming an I, right? So it's that like that process. Anyhow, oh, looks like someone. What's this? For me, it's time. I can feel in my dreams if I'm in past, present, or future, or if people in my dreams I know have passed away. I remind myself, "Hey, you died," and then I really start paying attention to what's actually happening and where or when I am. Yeah. So for me, it's time. So yeah, I can feel my dreams if I'm in my past, present, or future. You know, there's something in that, like right there, so powerful, right? So, or if it's people in my dreams I know who have passed away, I remind myself, hey, you died, right? That's like such a powerful thing to experience. Like, oh yeah, death. Oh yeah, death. And it does. That snaps you out of it, right? You're like,
how is this real? This must
yeah,
be a dream.
you've died. This is a dream. But that alone, right? That seeing someone in your dream that's past is that alone is like a wake up call to our waking self, right? That's our shadow going, hey, yeah, remember death? That's you. That's coming for you too, right? So make it good. So all that stuff that you're wanting to do it today.
Yeah, I had a dream about my granddad who'd passed, and he was a lot younger. Like he was younger than I am, but I recognized him. It's like he'd regressed in age, and he was doing all this fun stuff that I've never seen him do before. And it was when I came out of the dream, I was like, "Whoa, don't take for granted that you're going to get it all done eventually one day. You have to carve out those moments now, enjoy life now as well, while you're getting to wherever you want to go." Because it was like making up for missing out in that dream.
Yeah, well, you're really like, in a way, you're like we're all an extension of each other, but that's like a very direct extension, right? He's just two generations away, and it's like, we all really went like to touch on the shadow work stuff again. It's like, hey, we're all just an opportunity for generations, because we can't move, we haven't yet become biologically able to move through every potential stage of development that is available in the universe, because we only get maybe 100 years if we're super 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 lucky, right? So part of, I think, like bringing new people into the world, right, through like the miracle of birth, is to go, yeah, like we really do want to imprint on them our learnings and let them, like, you hand over the torch, right, and let them keep learning and growing. Unfortunately, my dog, she hasn't fucking figured out half the stuff I want her to yet. She's only 3, so
plenty of time.
But man, the baton, she just take it and chew on it. Hey, we've really been riffing. Hey, it's been
good.
Great. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm always conscious of humans, because, like, imagine having to try and listen to me. Us. Some of them had a double dose. They had you twice today.
I know. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great. So, couple things just while we're all here. We
Mhm.
got to sort out our we got to get our technical stuff like
Mhm.
nailed.
We're getting there.
Oh, yeah. We're getting there. I think we should. I think it'd be cool to, um, at some point we sort of have a little where we actually bring a couple of like little news articles or stuff that's like really topical and kind of
Mhm.
or get people out there to go, hey, just like riff on this, you know what I mean, or
Mhm.
whatever. Like if it's like news articles are great because you can kind of go like in living color here. Let's talk about all the different like stages, parts of development. Like how does this thing that's happening kind of the different aspects that we're talking about. It's like how does it relate to that particular thing, right? Like there's a really great, and I was trying to find it to put in the group, but there's a really someone out there has done like with spiral dynamics. They've taken famous movies and
Mhm.
they've taken all these clips at all the different stages,
Nice to
like
illustrate them.
that
Mhm.
really reflect perfectly, like,
Mhm.
and it's fascinating. And I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. So and then yeah, look, again, we're cooking up some really good stuff as far as workshopping that we really want to bring everyone together collectively, where everyone's contributing, but where we've got like a little bit of a framework to
Mhm.
work around. And it's, again, are you getting any feedback on what, because I know you posted some stuff about when a time might work for people. Is there any feedback? Getting any?
In terms of timing, it's still vague in my mind of when a good time slot is to so everyone can join in. Um, but from the feeling that I'm getting is that everybody's waiting on us. It's
Okay,
like
okay, cool.
when are you gonna do this? When are you gonna do this? We're ready to go. So um, yeah, we'll see. I'm not clear yet on the how's it's going to roll out yet, but we've definitely got the
Okay, cool.
whats
Well,
and the whys.
the way that we'll do it is we'll post a page in the group where it's
Mhm.
simply, I think we said we're going to do something really crazy in the beginning, like $14. I think that's what we
Mhm.
talked about
Mhm.
for a 4 hour workshop. We'll just post up the page with what we'll just do is pick a day. We'll say
Yeah,
this is the day,
yeah.
and likely, like if we're realistic, it's probably going to end up being for people in the US a Saturday night
Mm. Mhm.
because it works quite well for us, a Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon. Yeah,
And it's a Saturday night for you guys over there, if anyone's in the
yeah.
US. But it'll be a great Saturday night. Um, and yeah, this is where we'll kind of get into some of the technique stuff that you can take away and go, awesome. So we'll pick these bits, like, so for example, on the part of our states workshop that we do, one of the things in there, obviously, between meditation techniques, simple ones, visualization, there's also this aspect of the astral dreaming stuff, or whatever you want to call it, dream theater. Um, what terminology did you like? I like the term dream yoga, but
Mhm.
where we actually they'll walk away with, okay, these are techniques I can do at all different parts of the day. When we talk about
Mm.
shadow work, we'll dive into that stuff like the 3-2-1 process and how to not and how to take it from beyond just okay when you're laying in bed thinking about your dreams to okay, this is how you journal. This is how we take an actual thing that's happened in your life, a person that you can't stand, whether it's your boss or your wife or your sister-in-law, and here's how we work through this process so that your actual life is improved on the other side, you know?
Yeah.
But for that, we need to have people in the room with us.
Definitely. Yeah, there's the hidden value in all that as well is because I mean you can if you're an avid researcher and student you'll find techniques, and be able to adapt and apply them, which are similar to what we're going to go through. I don't know if there'll be anything new that people discover in there, but you'll get to practice it with us.
I promise there'll be something new.
Okay, good. I love it. Of course,
but it is
new.
but it is about what it's about. So like I'm doing this creative writing course at the moment, and what it's really about is going, this is the time that I know I'm turning up to do the course, and I know I got to do my homework before I turn up, right? Because if it's just up to me to do my creative writing on my own,
I'm not going to do it.
Good luck, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's part of it.
Already?
Yeah. So part of it is that we go, we're all going to invest our time and a very tiny monetary amount, but that just assures that we have value in it. So we go, that time we'll turn up, we'll be there, we'll do the work, and yeah, get to be a bit more interactive as well. And obviously when we do that stuff, there'll be fully like privacy and people can have an ability to kind of open up, and like on these it might be hard for people to want to just jump in and have a discussion. This will be a bit more like a closed Zoom room that people can open up as much or as little as they like, and it will be completely there'll be a cone of silence around it where we all take into account everyone's personal stuff. And I think you know what I'm trying to say. I think anyone.
Yeah. It's a safe space, as the cliche goes.
Safe space.
And yeah. And the other thing is, when you do this in groups, whether they're large groups or little groups, you form bonds with people that you just don't know where they're going to go and how long they could be a lifetime connection. So, it's a small price to pay. It's a small time commitment, and you're going to get something out of it personally, but the connections you make, that's a really nice bonus that comes out of it. And, just to give you an example, 100% of the people in the Facebook community group are new connections. There is not one person, well, maybe one or two. There's only maybe 5. I could probably count the people that I knew before I started this group on my hand.
Oh, wow.
Everyone else is brand new. Well, not brand new, but you know what I mean. And so, and those connections now are developing into all sorts of new things.
Exciting.
So, yeah.
All right. Look, 10 p.m. here, 10:02. Let's call it an evening.
Wow.
Awesome to chat, bro. Let's keep it up. Hopefully there's some value in there for someone. I get value of it just shooting the shit with you, and hopefully someone else might as well pick up some little nugget.
Well, I mean, clearly someone is. So as long as someone is, we'll keep doing it. But I'm enjoying it too. I look forward to these,
Great.
and I look forward to more in the future.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thank you very much again. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you,
And,
bro. Thanks
no,
everyone
my
that
pleasure.
we got Shaf. Great to see you in there. We got Facebook user Hi from Switzerland. It was awesome that there's someone from Switzerland that was here.
Yeah.
And thanks for contributing your thoughts, and anyone else. Thank you. And hopefully we will all see each other soon, face to face. Be safe, be happy.
You're going to do your thing. All beings.
Oh yeah, they all beings everywhere throughout the whole universe be well and happy. Love y'all.
Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for your attention. Bye for now, and we'll see you all in the next video.
You're welcome.